Welcome. Today we will be dealing with a session on the Union Budget of 2025. Now, what does the term budget mean? The budget is an annual financial statement. Now, what is an annual financial statement? The financial statement is the list of the expenditure and receipt. The expenditure being whatever is being spent on the economy, and the receipt is whatever income that we get. And the statement shows this particular list on an annual basis. The annual basis being from 1st April to March 31st. Hence, the term budget is not mentioned in the Constitution. The term annual financial statement is mentioned in the Constitution. Now, as I said earlier, presenting the annual financial statement is a constitutional requirement as per Article 112 of the Constitution. When you read through the provisions of the Constitution, you can see that the President lay down the budget before the Parliament. Parliament being the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, but it is presented by the Finance Minister of our country. Now, the question of who passes the budget. We are always familiar with the mechanism of money bill, how it is introduced in the Lok Sabha and how Lok Sabha has major powers with respect to money bill. Money bill is a bill that deals with money related topics or subjects. Same thing, the financial statement, or specifically what we say here as the budget, relates to money bill. So the money bill or the budget should be passed by the Lok Sabha by simple majority. And why the date 1st February would be a curious concern. We know that the financial year begins from 1st April to March 31st. So before the beginning of the financial year, this particular bill must be passed by the Lok Sabha. Hence, the date 1st February is chosen as the date for presenting the budget. Now, we know that Nirmala Sitharaman had presented the budget. What caught the attention is the sari worn by her. It is the Madhubani art. She has worn a sari that is displaying the Madhubani art. Just for your information, the Madhubani art is the folk painting of Bihar, and it has got a GI tag, the geographical indication tag, which means the place is known for that particular art. So in this session, the first component that I will be focusing is the fiscal deficit. Now, there has been an announcement in the budget stating that the fiscal deficit will be reduced to 4.4% of the GDP. So the primary question of what is the fiscal deficit would arise in our mind. Fiscal deficit is basically, I will give you a very simple example to make you understand. For example, I have 100 rupees in my hand and I want to spend on a product that is 150 rupees. So I have 50 rupees less, but I bought the product. So from this particular scenario, you would understand that I borrowed 50 rupees from someone else. Same way, the government has a particular expenditure. Expenditure meaning the money that is going to be spent on the economy. And we have a receipt or the revenue that is received by the economy. The revenue can be received through taxes and other measures. But when the expenditure is greater than the income, what does the government do? The government borrows. The amount of borrowings signify fiscal deficit. And in order to understand the full statement, which is stating that the government is planning to reduce fiscal deficit to 4.4% of GDP. Now, what is GDP? The gross domestic product. The gross domestic product is the value of final goods and services. Now, the question of what is final goods and services would arise in your mind. I will give you an example to make you understand. For example, I want to make a bread toast. What do? I literally buy bread, I buy milk, I buy sugar. So basically, I sell this product as bread toast. Okay, so that is my final good. Bread toast is my final good. So the GDP would take into account the price of the bread toast and not the price of bread, sugar, and milk. Why? Because the bread toast already has the prices of the inputs. That is why specifically GDP states that it only includes the final goods and services. And one thing to note is GDP is produced within the country, not outside the country. Whatever is happening within the territory of India, whatever final goods and services are we producing, that would be the GDP. So the government states that it is planning to bring down the GDP to 4.4%. So, as of 2023, we can see that the estimated value of GDP is 3,549.92 billion. Okay, so 4.4% of GDP would be the fiscal deficit. So, whatever the number that you arrive, that would be the target of government for the year 2025 to 2026. Now to the main component, we are going to discuss the theme of the budget. We all know that the theme of the budget is Sabka Vikas. Sabka Vikas means development for all. Now there is a background story to it. First of all, I would just give you an idea that this particular theme was actually borrowed from Gandhian ideology, which stated that development should be for all. It's a Gandhian philosophy. But there is a particular background to this particular story. Now, in 2021, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had coined the term Amrit Kal. Now, Amrit Kal means a golden period or a golden era, which signifies that a period that is going to be completely envisioned by massive success. It could be progress, it could be prosperity. So in 2021, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had said that the next 25 years, that is from 2022 to 2047, would be the year of Amrit Kal. That means these 25 years would be prospered by prosperity, success, and it would be completely successful. That is his vision. Now, the question of why 2047 has been chosen as the year. We all know that we have got independence on August 15th, 1947. By 2047, it would mark 100 years. So, within 100 years of independence, India will become a developed country. That is the main vision of Amrit Kal and the background story of Sabka Vikas. Now, in order to implement this, the government has initiated a particular initiative, that is Viksit Bharat 2047. So basically, it has a set of initiatives that is going to transform the country from the present state of developing status to the advanced state of developed status. Okay, now again, there would be a question of who determines a country as developed or developing. So, we know that the UNDP through Human Development Index would measure the level of development on certain parameters. The parameters being, it could be life expectancy index, it could be the level of education, it could be the level of per capita income. So certain criteria has been chosen. Certain criteria has been chosen in order to understand whether this particular country is developed or developing. So India is right now in the developing stage. So in order to make India as a developed country, we have a vision, focusing on four pillars. The four pillars are Garib, Garib meaning poor, Yuva meaning youth, Annadata meaning farmers, Nari Shakti, that is women. So these are the four pillars that the government is going to focus on. By implementing such schemes for these four pillars, the government is going to transform India into a developed country. Now, we will focus on the very important aspect of budget, that is the engines of growth and development. Now, what do you mean by engine? Engine gives the push. Without engine, you cannot move the vehicle. Same thing, by focusing on these four pillars, throughout the session, you will understand what are these four pillars, why are they important, why is the government focusing on these four pillars thoroughly. So, the engines of growth and development are these four pillars that are going to create a more prosperity in the coming years. The first being agriculture. Now, agriculture is considered as the very first engine of growth and development, primarily because 55% of the population is dependent on agriculture, but it contributes to around 18% of the GDP, which is a very marginal number compared to the number that is employed in agriculture. So, since 55% of the population is being engaged in agriculture, the government is going to make a lot of schemes supporting agriculture. The first being Dhan Dhanya Krishi Yojana. So, in this particular scheme, as you read through this particular scheme, you will understand that the government is going to focus on the most 100 backward districts of a country, and they are going to develop all these 100 backward districts. So 100 backward districts is the main target of this particular scheme. Now, how they are going to do it is an important question. The first being increasing productivity. Now, what do you mean by increasing productivity? By growing more crops. Second being crop diversification. Crop diversification means instead of growing particular type of crops, you need to grow different types of crops. As we know that we have an issue of soil erosion, we have an issue of infertility of the soil due to monocropping. I will give you a very good example, a very fine example. We know that MSP is announced for 23 crops, okay, including sugarcane. So, what does the farmers do? The farmers would actually grow such crops that are aligned to MSP. They wouldn't grow other crops because they're definitely getting a guaranteed minimum price. So definitely they will grow such crops. But what happens over time, the fertility of the soil keep on decreasing. So in order to stop the fertility of the soil, getting depleted, you have to diversify crops. So you have to grow different types of crops so that fertility of the soil will not be lost and it would enhance sustainability. That would be the second point. The third being better storage. After harvest, we know that most of the crops, they are being damaged because we don't have good storage facilities. So government is going to create an infrastructure where there is going to be a storage facility. The fourth being improved irrigation. Irrigation means what? Watering the field. So improved irrigation, it means basically we have the issue of climate change. Due to climate change, there is irregular rainfall pattern. So due to irregular rainfall pattern, the government is trying to focus on irrigating the particular field so that the farmers will have sufficient water for their crops and they don't have to depend on the monsoonal changes. And the fifth being credit availability. Even now, farmers, they are reluctant to go to the banks. Farmers, they actually depend on money lenders. So, because of the fact that they don't know the procedure, they don't know how, to access loans easily, the government is going to make the loans, freely accessible in such a manner that the farmers would have the availability to credit loans. Then the second component under agriculture is rural prosperity and resilience program. Now, what do you mean by the term rural prosperity, rural urban? So there is a difference between a rural and urban. Urban means such areas where activities are mainly focused on non-agricultural activities. Rural area means an area where there is a lot of activities that is primarily focused on agricultural activities. So agriculture is very dominant in the rural areas. So the government is planning to make the rural areas more resilient in such a manner that sufficient training is being given to the farmers. And also there would be a transfer of technology to the farmers so that the farmers know how to grow crops efficiently and effectively within a short span of time. Most of the farmers, they are actually ignorant of the advanced technology that is used. So, in order to prosper the rural areas, the government is planning to transfer technology so that the farmers are aware of these particular technologies so that they can actually improve the cropping structure. Then the third component is Mission for Atmanirbhar in pulses. When you read through this, we are actually going to focus on three crops. That is tur, meaning pigeon pea, urad meaning black gram, and masoor being lentils. These would be the three components of the mission for Atmanirbhar in pulses. So why pulses? Now we know that India is the largest producer and consumer of pulses. Pulses is very rich in proteins. It provides the necessary nutrients for our well-being. So in order to encourage, the growth of pulses, and in order to address the nutrient deficiency, the government is saying that you grow more pulses so that we are going to buy those crops from farmers. So grow more crops so that we will buy it from you. Now the government has actually said that the central agencies being National Agricultural Cooperative Marketing Federation of India. So this particular agency is going to buy crops directly from the farmers so that the farmers have fair prices. Same thing, there is another agency, that is National Cooperative Consumers Federation of India. That is basically in order to keep the prices stable for the consumers. The consumers' interest will be protected because they will not be charged high prices, because the central agency would buy the crops from the farmers and it would give it to the consumers at a fair price. So note the difference. NAFED is basically in order to protect the interest of the farmers by buying the crops from the farmers at a reasonable rate, and NCCF is basically buying crops from the farmers, but you make sure that the consumers would get a fair price without any kind of intermediaries or third party interference. Then the fourth component is the National Mission on High Yielding Seeds. Now, high yield means what? You're actually growing more crops. We know the impact of Green Revolution, how Green Revolution transformed India. So, there is a mission on high yielding seeds so that there is no food shortages and India would be completely self-sufficient in food production for a very, very long period of time. And the fifth component is the increasing loan limits for farmers. We know that there is a Kisan credit card. Kisan credit card is basically a card where the farmers can actually avail, credit cards. So basically they have a credit loan limit. So before it was 3 lakh, now it has been increased from 3 lakh to 5 lakh, making loans very, very accessible. Plus, they can take a limit of 5 lakh, which is a very laudable initiative. Then the sixth component under agriculture is the new urea plant in Assam. So urea, we know that it is a fertilizer very rich in nitrogen, and we know that the demand for urea is massive. So government is planning to open a new urea plant meaning a factory in Assam. And a very unique initiative is the Makhana board in Bihar. Makhana board is known for actually supplying, distributing the makhana. Makhana means fox nuts or water lily seeds. So these water lily seeds, they are very nutritious. They are actually good for our health, to make us healthy. But the problem is, though Bihar produces 90% of these seeds, the fox nuts, the problem is they have issues. They are not getting proper, prices. There is so many infrastructural issues. So in order to address all these challenges, a Makhana board is established. It's going to be established in Bihar. Now, the first component, we focused on agriculture. We know what all initiatives the government has taken. The second component is the micro, small and medium enterprises. We know that for the past few years, government is doing a lot to enhance the growth of MSME. Now, what is MSME and why it is very important? So, as the name signifies, it's a kind of small business. Okay, it's not completely established business like MNC. It's a small business, but it is classified based on micro, small and medium based on the level of people that they are engaged in, or it could be the amount of technology that they have. So based on all these factors, these particular enterprises are classified into micro, small and medium enterprises. So the government states that MSME is the second driver of growth because it contributes to 27% of GDP and it contributes to 45% of exports. So we know that India is focusing on exports. We have all, heard the term what is trade deficit. Trade deficit happens when imports are greater than exports. So the government's vision is to increase the level of exports. So in order to increase the level of exports, the government is planning to give more favorable measures to the MSME. So you can see the new classification of MSME. Now you can find the terms investment and turnover. There's a difference between the two. Investment means commitment of resources to a particular thing. Resources, it could be money. Like for example, I'm investing in a particular business. That is, I'm committing my money to a particular business. Turnover means how many sales that I had. So if you see the revised thing, it has been increased to 5 crore. Okay, so the investment from 5 crore to 10 crore being the turnover is classified as micro. Small you can see as 50 to 100 crore. Medium is 250 to 500 crore. So basically from this particular chart, you will understand that most of the business would come under MSME. Now the question of why the classification of MSME and why is MSME, if more business are classified as MSME, what is the primary advantage? That lies the question. Like we know that there is a priority sector lending scheme for every bank. So priority sectors are those sectors that contributes to GDP, but they are not getting enough support. So the government is saying that if someone asks for a loan, if it's a priority sector, make sure that you actually give preference to those sectors. So MSME is one of the priority sectors. So if you're an MSME, you can actually ask for a loan and you're being prioritized over other things. There are a list of priority sectors like agriculture, renewable energy. You can go through the list. But MSME being one of the priority sectors would get easy access to loans, and there are so many favorable measures for them. That is why when business is classified as an MSME, it is a laudable initiative for them. So as I said earlier, there has been an increased investment and turnover. The second being improved credit availability. So basically, as the term suggests, Credit availability. That means the credit should be available to MSME. So the government is saying that you have to give credit or you have to give loans to MSME. So in order to encourage the banks to give loans to MSME, the government is saying that we are going to guarantee you that up to 10 crore we will guarantee. So even if the MSME fails to pay, the government is guaranteeing that I'm going to pay. So the government is actually standing as the guarantor. So when there is a person who guarantees you, okay, even if he fails, I will pay, the tendency to give loans would be more prominent. So the banks would be encouraged to tender more loans to MSME. So in order to increase the credit availability, the government is guaranteeing that no matter what, up to 10 crore, we are guaranteeing you that we will pay. Even if they fail, we will pay. So in such a manner, the banks will be ready to give loans to MSME. Third is support for women, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe entrepreneurs. So basically, over the next 5 years, they would be having the access to have term loans of 2 crores. So up to 2 crores over the next 5 years, they can actually have access to it. So why these sectors? Basically, we know that women, SC, ST, they are still considered as vulnerable sections of the society. That is why special emphasis is being given to them. Then we have the global hub for toys. Now, the thing is, we all know that there is a Make in India campaign. Now, what is Make in India? It actually envisions a policy where, India is going to be a market where people are going to manufacture stuffs here so that we don't have to depend on the outside world or we don't have to depend on other countries in order to supply us. So what the government is planning to do is make India a global hub for toys. Okay, so manufacturing toys would be the domain of this particular mission. So basically, it would be considered as a manufacturing hub. So we know that most of the toys we do depend on China. So because China, they are cheap, you get different forms of toys. So the government is planning to make India a global hub for toys so that we don't have to depend on other countries for toys. And in such a manner, India becomes a reliant country. Self-reliant country means self-reliance. That means you're relying on yourself. So India is going to depend on itself. India is going to depend on itself so that they don't have to depend on other countries. So when India makes, as a market for global hub for toys, it leads to self-reliance. Then we have the same thing, the same philosophy of Make in India campaign, that is the National Manufacturing Mission. So basically, you are actually giving opportunity to the small and large scale industries to encourage manufacturing so that, India will become a reliant country. Now, if you see, this year's budget, a quick point which I have remembered, that we have like freedom fighters like Aurobindo Ghosh, there was a period where extremists, they actually fought for Swadeshi. It was during 1905, there was, a concept of Swadeshi. That means Swadeshi, that means what? It is like India's freedom, India's independence. Swadeshi, they actually aligned with freedom, plus they aligned this term with you're completely depending on yourself. Okay, that is Swadeshi, completely independent in such a manner that you're not going to depend on other countries for anything. So this is the philosophy behind this particular mission. And we have a National Institute of Food Technology. We know that it is going to be established in Bihar. Now, food processing is a very potential industry. The main reason why, because we know that due to the damage of crops, we know that agricultural crops or agricultural foods, in order to improve their shelf life, food processing industries is gaining prominence. Otherwise, the food will be wasted. So in order to reduce food wastage, food processing units are actually established so that the shelf life of the food would be increased, plus this food can be utilized in different products, so that it would create a market for different products for different consumers. Then we have the third engine, investment. Now, what do you mean by the term investment? Investment, as I said earlier, basically you're trying to invest your particular resource in a particular sector. So this year's budget, you can see that there is a lot of investment that is going to be invested for social capital. Now, what do you mean by the term social capital? Social capital means it could be something related to health, something related to education, in order to provide a quality of living to the people. So education, health, these are all qualitative factors. So the government is planning to invest such money in all these social sectors. Okay, so the first scheme is the Saksham Anganwadi and Poshan 2.0. So this scheme, when you read through it, it is basically providing nutrition. Okay, nutrition to women and children specifically. So there is everything is written in the slide, but the question of why women and children are being targeted. So as per Article 15 Clause 3 of the Constitution, it explicitly states that the government can actually make laws. Laws can include rules as well for women and children, because women and children are still considered as the vulnerable sections of the society. So that is why there is a special scheme, that is Saksham Anganwadi and Poshan 2.0, specifically meeting the needs of women and children. Then, to boost research and development, the government is focusing on Atal Tinkering Labs. So basically, in order to encourage innovation, labs can actually, makes the children to think. So thinking leads to creativity. So in labs, when you experiment with certain things, we are likely to think creatively. So in order to encourage such research, or in order to encourage creativity, 50,000 Atal Tinkering Labs will be established in government schools. Then the third component which comes under investment is basically the rural schools and the primary health centers would be given broadband connectivity. But the important aspect of this is basically there would be a Bharat net. So everybody will be given access to internet. The feature is this Bharat net, the fundamental aim of BharatNet is to actually provide Bharatiya Bhasha, Pustak scheme. That means basically you will have access to digital books in different languages. So basically, as per Bharatiya Bhasha Pustak scheme, which would encourage digital books in learning in different languages, would actually encourage children to learn. Language will not be a barrier in learning. That is the essence of that. So in order to have access to digital books, you need BharatNet, or you need to have access to internet. That is why BharatNet has been has been the aim of this particular mission. So you can see that throughout this particular budget, there is a lot of emphasis on rural areas. Then the fourth component is the expansion of IITs. So they are going to expand IITs in such a manner that 6,500 additional students will also be accommodated to these IITs. IITs being the hub of research and innovation. The fifth component is, in order to encourage artificial intelligence learning, there would be a center that is going to be created for artificial intelligence. So basically, it actually signifies how the government is going to focus on digital transformation, how the government is encouraging us to learn about artificial intelligence. So in order to enhance that particular skill, the government is planning to establish a center for artificial intelligence, so that we are not away with the present age, so that all are equipped with this particular technology. Then, as the sixth component, we can see that 10,000 medical seats will be added next year, mainly because there is a lack of professional doctors. So, in order to increase the medical field, the government is planning to increase the seats. And also, one important aspect is, we know that the diseases are being increasing on a daily basis. So sufficient number of doctors should be there to address these particular challenge. Then, as part of this particular health infrastructure, there will be daycare cancer centers in all district hospitals. So, which is again, it signifies how the government is prioritizing health. And also, you can see that there is the Swanidhi loans. Now, Swanidhi loans is given to street vendors. For example, I would say that I'm a singer. So, in order to, I have literally, sang and, composed my music in a particular DVD. So, in order to sell it, I need certain money. So, the government has actually come up with this particular Swanidhi scheme, so that loans will be provided to these street vendors, because they also want to live. So it is specifically targeting street vendors who actually earn their livelihood by selling their products in the streets. So basically, they have increased that limit to 30,000 limit. So they will be provided with credit cards where they can actually have a limit of 30,000 rupees. Then we have a social security scheme for online platform workers. So there is a health coverage which comes under PM Jan Arogya Yojana. So online platform workers, you can associate them with gig economy, or gig economy meaning, like for example, Swiggy, Uber, it's a we call them as casual workers because they are not permanent, because they are temporary. That is why it is known as gig economy. So the gig economy was being neglected for a very long time. So in order to provide them health, care coverage, the government has initiated this particular social security scheme. Then we have the Jal Jeevan mission to provide drinking water by 2028. Every person will have access to clean drinking water. Then we can see that there has been an announcement of key infrastructural projects. You can see in Bihar there is Western Koshi Canal project. Why? Because Kosi is known as the sorrow of Bihar. That means because of this particular river, Bihar is being in distress. So specifically focusing on this Koshi river, the government is planning to come up with this particular project. And a greenfield airport in Bihar. We know that airports we need for regional connectivity. So greenfield airport means there's a difference between greenfield and brownfield. Greenfield meaning, if there is no particular infrastructure, you're starting from the scratch. Brownfield is already, you're doing changes to the already existing infrastructure. For those who are not able to relate what is greenfield and brownfield. So greenfield airport is going to come in Bihar. Then you can see that there is a lot of emphasis on the maritime sector. So specifically, if you look through this particular slide, there is a maritime development fund worth of 25,000 crore. So we know that a lot of trading happens between ports, right from the Portuguese, the British. You can see that there has been a lot of emphasis on ports. Now, why do we need ports? Because trading happens through ports. Like for example, you can see the Mumbai port or the Gujarat port. It is linked, like for example, it is linked to the, India Middle East economic corridor, because trade happens through ports. The problem is ports are outdated. So since ports are outdated, the government this year has focused on shipbuilding technology, and also, to encourage private investment, the government has allocated 25,000 crore for this particular sector. So that is the continuation. Now, how they are going to revamp shipbuilding, by providing particular financial assistance so that the maritime sector would be boosted. Then, in order to enhance the concept of cooperative federalism. So cooperative federalism is between center and states. There is a cooperation between center and states. So loan assistance will be provided to states, like 1.5 lakh crore will be given to the states. Then the most important aspect which comes under investment is the nuclear energy expansion. So we have this Atomic Energy Act. So the Atomic Energy Act is the law that regulates the usage of nuclear energy. We know that nuclear energy has its own benefits and consequences. So nuclear energy, though it's a renewable energy, it is equally dangerous, but the government is planning to give opportunity to the private sector as well. So the government is saying that let's not focus on big nuclear power projects. Let's focus on the small nuclear power projects where nuclear power is needed only for a very short it would not be for big projects, it would be only for small projects. So in order to encourage the expansion of nuclear power projects, the government is saying that let us change these laws, the laws with respect to nuclear energy, that is the Atomic Energy Act. And then, let's give opportunity to the private sector so that they can actually invest in small modular reactors. Small modular reactors are those reactors which actually provide small amount of nuclear energy. So it's a reactor where you can actually create nuclear energy. So by 2033, the government is saying that let's small modular reactors be at least there in 5 in number by 2033. Then we have the organized asset monetization. So basically, asset monetization, as the term implies, that means we might have a confusion with respect to what does the term asset monetization means. It is basically government is actually planning to lease government projects to private parties. I will tell you, it is lease, on a lease basis. For a temporary period, the government will lease it to private parties and the government will use those funds to create new infrastructure. That is the plan of reinvesting 10 lakh crore into new projects. So reinvesting 10 lakh crore is from that particular sector. By leasing such projects, the government is going to create money, and that money, whatever money that it has got from leasing projects, will be created for new projects. Then we have the public-private partnership. So there is going to be an expansion with regard to that. And there is an urban challenge fund that is going to be created, that is worth of 1 lakh crore, so that urban areas are little more developed, specifically focusing on sanitation. Then we have the Udan scheme. So Udan scheme, we know that it is basically for connectivity. So it is going to cover 120 new destinations for air travel, so that we don't have to focus on particular areas in order to go to some country. So when there is 120 new destination, there would be a lot of choices to the consumers. The last engine of growth and development would be exports. As I said earlier, the government is planning to focus more on exports. Now, there has been a dedicated mission, export promotion mission, which is going to focus on key sectors. Now, what are these key sectors? Those sectors that contribute a lot to exports. For example, we had mentioned MSME. So the government is going to actually focus on all these sectors and is going to actually provide them certain measures or the necessary measures for them in order to augment or increase their production. The first is Bharat Trade Net. It's basically in order to simplify the imports and exports, there would be a particular digital platform where everything would be at one go. So in order for you to go through different sites, there would be one particular site relating to imports and exports, so that it would become more easier for the users, or whoever is exporting to do something, so to make it more simpler. Then we have the national framework for global capability centers. So basically, the role of global capability centers is to encourage MNCs in not very urbanized areas, but at least in urban areas. Now we know that MNCs are always established in big cities, like Mumbai. So the government is saying that let's not focus on all these big cities. Let us focus on semi-big cities, so that there will be no overcrowding in all these big cities. So in order to prevent the overcrowding of this particular cities, let there be semi-big cities where MNCs can come there. So in order to encourage such MNC, the GCC would provide them particular measures. Then under exports, there has been financial sector reforms, like the FDI, like in insurance companies, it was 74%, but the foreign direct investment can be increased from 74 to 100%. So FDI, we know that you're getting money from outside, and that particular money is being invested in certain key sectors in India. It would be targeting specific sectors, like for example, it could be targeting insurance companies, it could be targeting certain sectors. So for insurance, it has been increased from 74% to 100%. Then there is a partial credit enhancement facility. So in order to encourage corporate bonds, like corporate bonds. Now why do we issue bonds? So that we get money. So corporate bonds would be issued from the companies, and such bonds would be facilitated by a national bank for financial infrastructure and development, so that the companies would get the necessary funds to develop the infrastructure. And we have the Grameen credit score framework, which actually states that in order to make it easier for self-help groups and rural borrowers, public sector banks would implement this particular score, so that they will have easy access to loans. Then we have pension and regulatory reforms, which actually simplifies the laws with respect to pension. The most important aspect under exports, it would be the investment and ease of doing business. So basically, there is a Jan Vishwas bill. It is a bill that is being presented, where they are going to improve the ease of doing business. Now the ease of doing business is basically you're making business more easier. Like for example, like in earlier times, a small mistake would lead the business companies to to be charged with criminal crimes. So Jan Vishwas bill is a bill that is going to simplify certain provisions, and they are going to, for example, they are going to say that even if it's a small mistake, let us charge you with fine and nothing else, so that the business growth would be more enhanced. And the last thing that I would like to conclude is with the new income tax regime changes. You can see the old slabs and the new slabs. The doubt would be with respect to what is this up to 12 lakh, it is tax free. But as per new slabs, you can see from 4 lakh, it is charged from 5% to 30%. You can see the slabs. What the government means is, up to 12 lakh, it will be tax free. That means there would be tax benefits up to 12 lakh. So there could be a rebate. Rebate, for example, it's a form of discount. You are, charged like from 4 lakh to 8 lakh if you're paying 5%. And for example, the government, brings in a discount saying that you don't have to pay tax. You don't have to pay any tax. So up to 12 lakhs, the government can bring initiatives, the government can bring rebate or tax-free policies up to 12 lakhs, so that you don't need to pay income tax. Okay, but it does not mean that you don't have to pay income tax. The government can actually implement certain initiatives up to 12 lakh, so that there would be certain discount or there would be certain rebate on this income tax, so that you don't have to worry about it. So up to 12 lakhs, it's tax free. So that means up to 12 lakhs, the government will provide certain measures. It could be tax rebate. So that would be the confusion that people will be having. So from 4 lakh, again, I repeat, like, we have to pay tax, but up to 12 lakhs, the government can come up with certain policies or initiatives that could make it tax free. So this is the main aspect of the budget. As we know that when you read through the budget, it's a very liberal, plus it's a very cooperative budget which has aligned with major sectors of the economy. And I think the budget represents India's vision of Amrit Kal. So it's a very laudable budget. And thank you.